12 music conspiracies from the 1970s, things people said out loud and got laughed at for saying. Things that sounded paranoid, far-fetched, even dangerous to believe. And then, one by one, they were confirmed, proven, put on the record. What you're about to hear isn't speculation, it isn't internet gossip, it's documented. I can't walk out. And some of it will change the way you hear music you've loved your whole life. Number 12, Philadelphia International Records, the Philly Sound's Dirty Secret. The sound of Philadelphia, you know it the moment it comes on. Those strings, that bass line. Backstabbers, Love Train, Me and Mrs. Jones. By 1975, Philadelphia International Records, Gamble and Huff's label, had basically replaced Motown as the defining sound of black music in America. They weren't just making hits, they were making statements. Songs about community, about pride, about resistance, the most socially conscious label in the game, and then the government knocked on the door. In June 1975, a federal investigation called Project Sound indicted 19 people across 4 cities: Newark, Philadelphia, Memphis, and Los Angeles. And one of the names in that indictment was Kenny Gamble, the man who built the Philly sound from scratch. The accusation: Philadelphia International had paid approximately $25,000 in bribes to radio program directors in exchange for airplay, not requesting, not suggesting, paying. Gamble was eventually fined $2,500. Leon Huff was cleared. The music kept playing. TSOP stayed on Soul Train. The OJs kept selling records, and on the surface, nothing changed. But stay with me here, because the conspiracy isn't just that Gamble paid for airplay. The conspiracy is what the investigation revealed underneath. This wasn't one label. The probe stretched across 4 cities and hit labels of every kind, major and independent, black-owned and white-owned. The industry had an entire economy running beneath it. Cash changed hands every week, product changed hands, and in a few entries, we'll talk about something that made cash look innocent. And here's what gets me about this one. These were the men who wrote, "Am I Black Enough for You?" Who wrote, "Give the people what they want," who built their whole reputation on speaking for communities that nobody else spoke for. And underneath all of that, they were playing the same corrupt game every other label was playing, because if you didn't play it, your records didn't get heard. That's entry 12, and we're just getting started. Number 11, Disco Demolition Night, the night they burned black music. July 12th, 1979, Comiskey Park in Chicago. Between games of a doubleheader, a radio DJ named Steve Dahl walks onto the field in military gear and blows up a crate of records in center field. 50,000 people are screaming. They're chanting. The field gets rushed. 39 people get arrested. The White Sox have to forfeit the second game. And for decades, the official story was rock fans just didn't like disco. But here's what that story quietly left out. The ushers working Comiskey Park that night started noticing something. The people walking in weren't just bringing disco records. They were bringing in Tyrone Davis records, Curtis Mayfield records, Marvin Gaye records, Stevie Wonder records, Otis Clay. None of those are disco artists. They're soul artists, black artists. And those people were still being let in because the ticket just said, bring a record. Nile Rodgers of Chic watched the footage the next morning. You know what he said? He said it felt like Nazi book burning. And here's where this moves from ugly moment to confirmed conspiracy. Rock radio stations had been losing listeners to disco badly. And a report that emerged afterward confirmed that creating Disco Sucks clubs was explicitly a marketing strategy built to attract white, male, 18 to 34 listeners back to rock radio. All that pressure got you down. The station that promoted Disco Demolition Night had been fired from its previous job when it switched formats to all disco. Steve Dahl built his whole career on that bitterness. And the station that hired him next turned that bitterness into a movement, a profitable movement. Disco came out of Black and Latino and gay communities in New York. It carried that DNA into every corner of the mainstream. And when it became too big, too loud, too present, the backlash came. Dressed up as a musical preference, disguised as harmless fun, and it worked. Disco radio stations switched back to rock almost overnight. The Grammy organization canceled its new Best Disco Recording category. Gigs dried up for an entire generation of artists. The people who said it was racial weren't being paranoid. The evidence confirmed it. All that pressure got you down. Real talk. Only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's $1 coffee a month, and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it. Number 10, Atlantic Records stole Stax's soul. Wasting time. Here's something that gets me every time I think about it. I've had nothing to live for. In 1960, Jim Stewart started Stax Records in Memphis, Tennessee, in an old movie theater on McLemore Avenue. Over the next 8 years, they built something extraordinary. Otis Redding, Sam and Dave, Booker T and the MGs, Carla Thomas, Wilson Pickett recorded there. The whole Memphis sound, raw, sweaty, real, came out of that building. Every hit, every iconic moment. 8 years of some of the most powerful music ever made. I left my home in Georgia. And in 1968, Jim Stewart found out that none of it belonged to him. In 1965, Stax had signed a distribution deal with Atlantic Records. Standard language, they were told. And buried in the fine print was a clause that gave Atlantic not just distribution rights, but ownership. Full copyright ownership of everything Stax recorded from 1960 through 1967. Every master, every song, Otis Redding's catalog, Sam and Dave's catalog, Booker T's catalog. In exchange for distributing their records, Atlantic had quietly taken their entire history. And here's where it gets worse.
I left my home in Georgia.
When Atlantic was sold to Warner Brothers in 1968, Stax tried to negotiate, tried to get something back, some control, some recognition. Atlantic's position was simple. The contract said what it said. Stax walked away with nothing.
On a darker bay, wasting time.
Not a dollar in compensation, not a single master tape. The building was theirs. The name was theirs. The future was theirs. The past belonged to someone else.
Sitting on a darker bay.
If you've ever built something and watched someone take it, built something for years, giving it everything you had, you understand what that moment feels like. And this wasn't carelessness. This wasn't an oversight. This was a contract designed to work exactly the way it worked.
Everything still remains the same. I can't do.
Stax's lawyers missed it, or weren't sharp enough, or didn't know to look. Jim Stewart went on record saying he didn't understand what he'd signed. I believe him, because nobody signs away their entire legacy on purpose.
The ships roll in, and then I watch them roll away.
Atlantic got one of the greatest catalogs in soul music history for practically nothing.
And in the morning sun, I'll be sitting.
Number 9, the Mafia's secret record label, Morris Levy. The name doesn't mean much to most people now, but in the 1970s, everyone in the music industry knew exactly who he was, and most of them were afraid of him. Levy ran Roulette Records. He owned the Birdland Jazz Club in New York. He had his hands in record pressing plants, tape duplication facilities, distribution companies, and a chain of record stores. Billboard called him the Octopus, not because of his business reach, though that was real, but because nobody in the industry could tell exactly where his hands were or what they were holding. What they suspected for years, what insiders whispered, was confirmed in a federal court in Camden, New Jersey in 1988. Morris Levy was convicted of extortion, and the FBI's evidence revealed what people in the industry had known. Roulette Records had been operating as a front for the Genovese crime family. The boss of one of New York's most powerful mob organizations had a silent stake in a major record label. And for decades, nobody could prove it. Tommy James, who had hits on Roulette through the late 60s and early 70s, wrote about it years later. He estimated that Roulette owed him somewhere between $30 and $40 million in unpaid royalties. And he said the reason he didn't press harder, he was terrified. You didn't push Morris Levy for money. You took what he gave you and you said thank you. Because the alternative wasn't a lawsuit. The alternative was something else entirely. And if you're thinking, okay, but this is organized crime, not the music industry, here's what I want you to sit with. This label released records that were on black radio, at your house party, at your family reunion. Music you grew up with, music that meant something to you, was generating money that went, in part, to organized crime. And the artists making it had no idea. Or they did know, and they were too afraid to say anything. Both of those things should make you angry. Number 8, Led Zeppelin stole their greatest songs. Let me ask you something. You know, Whole Lotta Love, right? Of course you do. That riff, that swagger, Robert Plant wailing over one of the most recognizable songs in rock history. 1969, off Led Zeppelin 2, one of the most played songs of the entire decade. Now let me play you something else. 1962, Muddy Waters, a song called You Need Love, written by Willie Dixon. Go find it. Listen to the lyrics. Listen closely. They're the same lyrics. I don't mean similar. I don't mean influenced by. Robert Plant, by his own admission, quoted directly from Willie Dixon's song when he couldn't think of what to sing over Jimmy Page's riff. Inside you. Plant later put it this way, and I'm paraphrasing because he said it pretty plainly. It was a nick, something taken. And in his words, now happily paid for. They settled out of court. Willie Dixon is now credited as a co-writer, but for years, everyone who bought that record thought those lyrics belonged to Led Zeppelin. And Whole Lotta Love wasn't the only one. The Lemon song pulled heavily from Howlin' Wolf's Killin' Floor. Chester Burnett didn't get credited on the original either. Multiple songs across their early catalog borrowed from blues musicians, black musicians, working class musicians, musicians who never saw any meaningful compensation from the songs that became legendary. The conspiracy people suspected that Zeppelin was systematically lifting from artists who didn't have the resources to fight back turned out to be exactly true. The settlements came, the credits were retroactively added, and none of that changed the fact that for years, a band that became one of the richest in rock history had built part of that fortune on music they didn't write. Willie Dixon put it simply, they just lifted. He knew. Number 7, the music industry paid DJs with cocaine. We've already talked about cash payola, labels paying radio DJs to play records. By the 1970s, that story was old news, almost quaint, because what federal prosecutors discovered when they launched Project Sound in 1973 was something different, something that made simple cash bribes look conservative. They found that parts of the music industry had developed a second currency. Cocaine, prosecutors called it dimegola, a combination of payola and dime, slang for cocaine. And when grand juries convened in 4 cities simultaneously, Newark, Philadelphia, Memphis, and Los Angeles, they started finding evidence that some record labels had been using cocaine as standard promotional currency. Not cash, not merchandise, controlled substances delivered to program directors and DJs alongside or instead of the usual envelopes. Think about the scale of what that means. We're not talking about one label, one artist, one DJ who had a problem. We're talking about a documented practice spread across multiple major markets, confirmed by federal investigators, that explained why certain records got played and certain records didn't. Your favorite song from 1972, 1973, 1974, you heard it because someone somewhere made sure you heard it, and the way they made sure wasn't always legal. And here's the part that nobody talks about. The artist knew something was off. If you were on a label that didn't play the game or couldn't afford to, your single could be incredible and still die. It didn't matter how good the music was. What mattered was whether your promotion guy knew the right people and had the right product to offer. The investigation led to 19 indictments across those 4 cities. Some people were convicted. Most of the industry adjusted its methods rather than its ethics. and the music kept playing.
Very superstitious.
Number 6, Motown owned the Jackson 5's name, not them. By 1975, the Jackson 5 were done with Motown. You already know the story of what came after. Epic Records, creative control, a royalty rate of 20% instead of 2.7%. Yeah, 2.7%. That's what Motown paid them on record sales, the most commercially successful group on the label. The family that had sold out arenas and generated millions of dollars in merchandise, lunchboxes, cartoons, trading card sets, was getting 2.7 cents on every dollar. So they left, and Motown let them leave with one condition. They owned the name, not the music, not the masters, the name. The Jackson 5 belonged to Motown, or more precisely, to Berry Gordy's business infrastructure. And when the family moved to Epic Records and tried to bring that name with them, Motown sued. They went to court, and they lost. Michael Jackson, Jackie, Tito, Marlon, Randy, they had to record under a new name. The Jacksons, because Motown wouldn't release what had always felt like theirs. Here's what nobody says out loud about this. Imagine signing a contract as a teenager or as the parent of teenagers, and somewhere in that contract, in a clause you may not have fully understood, is a line that says the brand you've built, the name your family is known by, the identity you've created belongs to the company, not to you. And you don't find out until you try to leave. Motown wasn't unique in this. Labels owned artist names across the industry. It was standard. But standard doesn't mean right. It means the people writing the contracts had more lawyers than the people signing them. Jermaine stayed. He was married to Berry Gordy's daughter by then. The rest of the family went to Epic. And what happened next? Off the Wall, Thriller, the greatest commercial run in music history, happened under the Jacksons' name because the other name wasn't theirs to keep. Number 5, CBS Records deliberately killed Stax. We talked about Atlantic stealing Stax's catalog at entry 10, but that almost killed the company. Almost. Al Bell didn't quit. He rebuilt from scratch. 27 albums released simultaneously in 1969. A new roster, a new sound, and then one record changed everything.
It's a bad mother. Shut your mouth. What I'm talking about, Sharon?
Isaac Hayes' Hot Buttered Soul in 1969, followed by the Shaft soundtrack in 1971. Isaac Hayes became the first African American to win an Oscar for Best Original Song. Stax was back. Big. The second largest black-owned business in America. And then CBS Records came calling with a distribution deal. In 1972, Al Bell signed a distribution agreement with CBS. They would carry Stax Records nationwide. It looked like the deal that would make them untouchable. And then, slowly, quietly, the money stopped flowing back. CBS had a legal obligation to distribute Stax Records, but distribution doesn't require you to actually put the records in stores. It doesn't require you to pay on time. And Stax, needing to meet payroll, needing to keep the lights on, borrowed from a Memphis bank to cover the gap, borrowed against a company that Price Waterhouse had valued at $67 million in assets.
Damn right.
By December 1975, Stax was in involuntary bankruptcy. Federal marshals showed up at the building on McLemore Avenue and seized everything. The master tapes, the equipment, everything that was left of what they'd built. Al Bell later said that CBS employees told him directly that they were going after the biggest black label they could find. He used a specific phrase in interviews. I won't repeat it here, but he wasn't subtle about what he believed had happened. Al Bell was indicted for bank fraud. He was acquitted of every charge, but he was broke. He went from owning a company worth $67 million to, in his words, scraping together 15 cents from time to time. Isaac Hayes filed for bankruptcy in 1976.
He's a complicated man, but no one understands.
Number 4, the invisible band behind every Motown hit. You know I heard it through the grapevine. Ain't too proud to beg. What's going on? I want you back. How sweet it is. My girl. Pick any Motown classic you love, almost anyone from the 1960s into the early 1970s, and there's a good chance you know every word of the vocal. You know whose name is on the record. You know whose face was on the album. You probably don't know who was actually playing. There was a band, a group of musicians, session players, mostly Detroit locals, who recorded at Motown's Hitsville studio on West Grand Boulevard and played on virtually every hit the label produced. Bass, drums, piano, guitar, strings, song after song after song, year after year. James Jamerson on bass, considered by many to be the most important bass player in pop music history. Benny Benjamin on drums until he died in 1969. Earl Van Dyke on piano. They called themselves the Funk Brothers, though almost nobody outside the studio knew that name. Here's the conspiracy they lived inside. Their names appeared on nothing. No album credits, no liner notes, no acknowledgement of any kind. Motown had a policy. The records were Motown records. The musicians were session players. They received a flat fee per session. No royalties, no back end, no percentage of the hits that made the label worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And Berry Gordy went further. He prohibited the Funk Brothers from moonlighting at competing Detroit studios. If you were caught recording for Golden World or Rick Tick, any label that competed with Motown, you could lose your Motown work entirely. So they were locked in, paid flat rates, forbidden to diversify, and credited with nothing. James Jamerson, the man whose bass lines are the heartbeat of virtually every Motown record you've ever loved, died in 1983. He'd been struggling financially for years. A 2002 documentary finally told the full story. Some of the surviving Funk Brothers had no idea about how many hit records they'd actually played on. That's how thoroughly they were erased. Number 3, the day Columbia Records fell apart. May 29, 1973. Clive Davis, president of Columbia Records, the most powerful record executive in America, was called into a meeting with CBS president Arthur Taylor. 2 minutes later, he was fired. Security escorted him to his office, let him collect his things, and walked him out of the building. No warning, no discussion. A 40-year-old man at the peak of his career, responsible for signing Santana, Janis Joplin, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Aerosmith, and Billy Joel, gone in 2 minutes. The official explanation was expense account violations, a bar mitzvah charge to the company, an apartment renovation, about $94,000 in personal expenses he'd apparently run through CBS. And yes, that was real. That happened. But people in the industry immediately knew $94,000 doesn't get you escorted out of a building in 2 minutes. Not when you run a division generating $340 million a year. CBS doesn't sue a Clive Davis for $90,000, an Atlantic Records executive said at the time. They're trying to get out of something fast. Here's what they were getting out of. The same federal investigation, Project Sound, that we've already mentioned, had found its way to Columbia Records. A talent agent named Pasquale Falcone, who booked artists like Sly Stone and Lynn Anderson onto Columbia, had been indicted by a Newark grand jury on heroin trafficking charges. Investigators found among his papers a fictitious trucking company that had been billing Columbia for services never rendered, and a connection to Clive Davis's director of artist relations. The investigation touched heroin trafficking, organized crime, cocaine payola, and the financial machinery of the biggest record company in the world. Good enough for me and my Bobby. Davis was eventually charged with a minor tax violation, $2,700 in disputed expenses, and pled guilty in 1976 to a reduced charge. 5 of 6 counts were dropped. The judge publicly criticized the media coverage as appalling. Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. But the moment that ended it all, the 2-minute meeting, happened because something very big was about to become very public. And CBS moved first. Number 2, Elvis's manager was not who he said he was. Colonel Tom Parker, the man who made Elvis Presley, the manager who took Elvis from a regional country act to the biggest name in entertainment history. The Colonel, everybody called him. 6 feet tall, cigar in his mouth, baseball cap, elephant head cane. A character, a showman, a genius, some said. His real name was Andreas Cornelis van Kuijk, and he was born in Breda, the Netherlands, in 1909. Parker stowed away to America in 1929 or entered illegally through Canada, depending on which account you believe. He was never naturalized. He never got a passport. For his entire career managing the most famous person on the planet, Colonel Tom Parker was an undocumented immigrant living under a stolen name, a name he'd taken from an army officer he'd served under in Hawaii. The truth didn't come out until the 1980s, years after Elvis died. Parker's own sister in the Netherlands recognized him in a photo with Elvis. When you don't believe a word I say. Dutch journalists started digging. And by 1982, what had been whispered for years was finally confirmed on the record. Here's what that secret cost. Elvis Presley received offers to tour Europe, to play Japan, to perform in sold-out venues across the world. The Rolling Stones toured everywhere. The Beatles played everywhere. Elvis, the biggest music act in the world, never left North America. Whoa, what you doing to me? Whoa. Parker always had an excuse. Security concerns, venues too small, logistics too complicated. The real reason was simple. If Parker left the United States, he might not be let back in. And if he traveled internationally, his identity might unravel. So Elvis's career stayed landlocked in a country he could have conquered multiple times over. And there's one more thread to this. A Dutch journalist later found circumstantial evidence suggesting Parker had fled the Netherlands after a young woman was murdered in Breda in 1929, days before his departure. The murder was never solved. Parker took his full story to the grave in 1997. Number 1. The President of the United States went to war with a musician. In 1971, John Lennon moved to New York City and started writing songs about peace. Imagine, Happy Xmas, war is over. He marched for Native American rights. He met with the Black Panthers. He linked up with anti-war activists who were planning concerts around Nixon's 1972 re-election campaign to mobilize the new youth vote. That year, for the first time, 18-year-olds could vote, and the FBI began following him. But I'm not the only one. Not watching from a distance, following. Agents showing up at concerts in disguise, taking notes on every word he said and sang. Phones tapped, men in suits outside his apartment on Bank Street in the West Village. Senator Strom Thurmond wrote a memo to the Nixon White House recommending that Lennon's visa be terminated because if he organized young voters, it could cost Nixon the election. J. Edgar Hoover sent a directive to the New York FBI office. The exact wording, Lennon should be arrested if at all possible on possession of narcotics charges, which would make him immediately deportable. They even sent a wanted poster to New York law enforcement with Lennon's physical description and a photo. The photo was of someone else, a friend of Lennon's named David Peel. Lennon knew it was happening. He said so publicly on the Dick Cavett Show in the Mike Douglas Show. He said men were following him. He said his phones were tapped. People thought he was being paranoid. He was a rock star, after all. Famous people get like that. He wasn't being paranoid. Every word of it was true. It isn't hard to do. The deportation order came in 1972. Lennon fought it for 4 years. Nixon resigned in 1974. The courts overturned the deportation order in October 1975. The same week Lennon and Yoko's son Sean was born. He received his green card in 1976. The FBI's files on John Lennon weren't fully released until the 1990s, after a historian named John Wiener spent 14 years fighting the Bureau under the Freedom of Information Act. The files confirmed everything: the memos, the directives, the surveillance, the political motivation. Imagine there's no country. The sitting president used the full machinery of the federal government, the FBI, the INS, the Senate, to silence a musician. Because his songs were too popular, because his voice was too loud, because Give Peace a Chance was being chanted at protests across the country, and Richard Nixon didn't like where that was going. Above us, only sky. That's number one. And the most disturbing part of all of it, Lennon knew. He said it out loud. And the world told him he was paranoid. Imagine there's no heaven.